As a pretty cool guy once said, in the world today, all culture, all literature, and art belong to definite classes and are geared to definite political lines. There is, in fact, no such thing as art for art's sake. Art that stands above classes, art that is detached from or independent of politics. Proletarian literature and art are part of the whole proletarian revolutionary cause. They are, as Lenin said, cogs and wheels in the whole revolutionary machine. Every form of art has a class base to it. It originated from a certain class, and today reflects the class interests of either the exploiters or the exploited, the bourgeoisie, the petty bourgeoisie, or the proletarian class. Art in every form, paintings, literature, song, and dance, is a reflection of class society in some way, serving as a superstructural mirror to the economic base. Knowing this, the job of the Marxist is to utilize art as a means to propagate our line, furthering the class struggle worldwide. Or, as Mao insisted, our purpose is to ensure that literature and art fit well into the whole revolutionary machine as a component part, that they operate as powerful weapons for uniting and educating the people and for attacking and destroying the enemy, and that they help the people fight the enemy with one heart and one mind. Of course, making art part of the whole revolutionary machine in a country with a small or virtually non-existent communist movement rather than one with a large and strong one is a challenge, to say the least, but it's certainly not impossible. In fact, the way in which that can successfully take place on the local on-the-ground organizing level depends on you conducting a social investigation and class analysis of the culture resulting from the material conditions of the proletariat which you seek to revolutionize. Now, I'm a student of Marxism, Leninism, Maoism myself, with emphasis on student, and thus can be wrong, and I'm always open to criticism when I am. But from what I understand of this, the TLDR seems to be that you should probably lean more towards using forms of art popular amongst the masses you seek to propagate to, in order to form a mass base, than using forms of art more popular amongst, the bourgeoisie, considering that people we seek to mobilize to see their class interests fulfilled through revolution are proletarian people and not the bourgeoisie. You get what I'm saying? Furthermore, we should be aware of what forms of art are popular with the specific and particular proletarians amongst us which we are able to propagate to due to physical proximity and not based on national and international generalizations of what we think a proletarian would respond to. Again, this is where SICA comes into play, especially when understanding the proletarian culture of your localized working class. Is your art and literature reflecting the localized struggle of the proletariat which you seek to organize, thus helping you accumulate a mass base that allows you to form a mass line based on their interests? Are you engaging in forms of art and media popular amongst those masses you seek to organize? And are you doing so in a way that does not fall into tailist habits of encouraging and engaging in practices that promote reactionary beliefs and actions, such as overconsumption or social chauvinist tendencies? This video is about using art as a powerful tool to wield in order to educate and mobilize the masses. But in all honesty, it's also an excuse to introduce you all to one of the most hilarious cultural traditions from the region of my birth. So I figured, why not combine that yap session with some of Mao's teachings and analyze the historical origins of this very localized and popular form of proletarian art that is used to this day to propagate political lines in an iconically satirical fashion. So that's what I've cooked for you today. An analysis of and recipe on how to use folk music from your local proletarian population to spread propaganda using a quintessentially Andalucian, specifically Gaditano example, La Chirigota.
Pobre Israel, se tendrá que defender, tú tranquilo que yo alivio tu genocidio, que diga guerra, pobre Israel.
So La Chirigota refers to both the Andalucian choral folk song from the port region of Cádiz, as well as the group of people that perform such songs during Carnaval season, mid-February to the end of the month. Chirigotas are usually made up of a group of 7 to 12 people singing in different voices, accompanied by kazoos, guitars, una caja, and other simple instruments. It's also the tradition of chirigotas to dress up in a satirical costume as a new theme every year, naming their group something witty and creating 30 minutes to an hour of songs to perform during Carnaval. Within this 30-minute to 1 hour time frame, the usual chirigota tries to achieve 5 fundamental parts which define its genre: the presentation of their group's name, and the reasoning behind their choice in costume and theme, 2 pasodobles, 2 couplets, a chorus, and a medley. So we've previously established that all art originates from one class or another, and it just so happens that La Chirigota originated in the 19th century as informal street groups of proletarian people mocking the bourgeois class, and speaking out against oppression through humor and more specifically satire. However, of course, the origin of an art does not mean that it's still purely proletarian in its current form. I don't know about y'all, but we live in a material world, and I am a dialectical girl, so let's not forget dialectics. For many genres of music emerged from proletarian marginalized people and originally reflected their struggles and interests and then were adopted and neutralized by the ruling class. You can probably think of 50 examples of this off the top of your head, but let's stay on topic here. In the case of Chirigotas today, rather than in the past, you can first begin to distinguish its class lines by its legal or illegal status. However, this is not a perfect rule. There are some illegal chirigotas run by petty bourgeois reactionaries and legal chirigotas who are generally proletarian in essence, yet run a greater risk of co-optation and defanging due to their legal status. But anyway, we're getting really ahead of ourselves right now. Legal chirigotas, or las legales, are defined as legal because they are officially recognized by the local government due to their compliance to the rules of the Carnaval of Cádiz, and thus get to compete on the prestigious stage of the Teatro de Falla, and even be sponsored by Spanish corporations. Since these tend to be more embraced by the bourgeoisie and petty bourgeoisie, and more likely to contain members of the bourgeoisie and petty bourgeoisie in their ranks, they dial down the political rhetoric or abandon it fully as to not be offensive to the ruling class. Instead, either making supposedly apolitical songs covering Spanish history and current events, making only vague political critiques of Spanish politics and its ruling class, or making their political criticisms from a fervently right-wing or reformist perspective. This is why only they were allowed to perform in the Carnaval of Cádiz during the Franco regime, under heavy regulation. The illegal chirigotas, las ilegales, las chirigotas callejeras, or street chirigotas, whatever you want to call them, are chirigotas that do not operate within the legal confines and recognitions of the Carnaval of Cádiz. These chirigotas were first defined as illegal during the Franco dictatorship, since they performed on the streets despite the regulations set in place by the local government in Cádiz and central government in Madrid. Since then, they have performed in alleyways, steps, bars, and underground chirigota clubs. Now, while these illegal chirigotas are generally characterized by their proletarian class makeup and for their more brazen political commentary, we must remember that the masses of proletarian people are not all revolutionaries, and if they were, we would not be living under class society anymore. As Araling Activista, or ARAC, outlines, we can divide masses into 3 parts: the advanced, the middle, and the backward. The advanced ranks of the masses have a clear understanding of their basic conditions and are ready to struggle to change it. The backward part of the masses, meanwhile, can be easily influenced by backward ways of thinking and may be resistant to struggle or change. The middle part, meanwhile, may understand the need for change, but are reluctant and hesitant to move for action. We can similarly see that there are chirigotas callejeras that are made up of backwards, advanced, and middle masses. Regardless, las ilegales or las callejeras are extremely popular amongst the people of Cádiz and are considered to be the real chirigotas that stay true to their proletarian origins. This popularity has caused the Spanish and Andalucian bourgeoisie to relax their restrictions and repression against them after the end of the Franco dictatorship for fear of upsetting the masses. Important context: right after the supposed democratic transition in Spain came the mass movement for autonomy for Andalucia as a region, whose cultural practices and identity underwent an attempted Castilianization by the Franco dictatorship, in many ways similar to Catalunya and Euskadi. After autonomy was achieved, Andalusian pride and nationalism was more widely accepted by the authorities, and thus expressions of our culture, such as las chirigotas callejeras, began to be embraced rather than repressed. Okay, so if you encountered una chirigota ilegal on the street of the Carnaval of Cádiz, what are some typical kinds of messages you'd expect to be heard propagated through the use of satirical humor and kazoos? Well, you can hear people singing anti-fascist songs mocking Spanish misogynists, like the Chirigota Cádiz woman did in 2024 in their song Mr. Facha.
Ay, mira, por ahí llega Mr. Facha. Mira, te pongo lo de siempre, Mr. Facha. Es bonito el menú infantil. Unos nuggets. Prefieres un Happy Meal. Un zumito. Mr. Facha es especial. Un globito. Lo tenemos que integrar. Mr. Facha se sienta a comer. Y le dejo colorear salvamantel. Ha pedido queso y mostaza. Está pintando banderita en todas las tazas. Mr. Facha es adorable y es la caña, porque viene a punto de defender España. Ha aprendido la palabra independencia y se ha vestido en solito y con paciencia. Mr. Facha le tenemos.
Or making fun of monarchs like my hometown's Ilegal Derrota did in 2023.
Muy campechano, ligón y viajero, jugó con su hermano a los pistoleros. Bribón a las mazmorras, allí debían de estar. Se ha ido pa' Abu Dhabi, pa' no tributar.
You can find people renouncing right-wing political parties such as Vox, dressed as caricatures of their supporters and mocking their political agenda, such as La Ilegal de Casa Puerta, which did in 2020 under the name Ojú Party.
Todo el que venga a mi país va a tener ya que venir, conociendo la costumbre y cultura de aquí. Demostrarlo en la frontera y pegarse un paso monje de Antonio Martí. Habemos tantos catetos saliendo por la esquina que a España solo le falta ponerse ya una boina, y con todo lo que yo pienso y todo lo que predico, Casado y Albert Rivera me van a ganar a borrico. Mujeres en pie de guerra, mariquitas desatados, con lo bien que estaba esto, todo atado y bien atado. Venimos a la reconquista, montado como los comanches, al trote detrás del himno de Marta Sánchez. Salimos por fin de ropero y que viva Alfredo Landa. Que aquí va a vivir todo el mundo como Dios manda. Que aquí va a vivir todo el mundo como Dios manda. Que aquí va a vivir todo el mundo como Dios manda.
And of course, I'd be remiss to not mention my favorite chirigota of all time, La Chirigota del Airon, which in 2020 dropped the most legendary diss track against right-wing proletarians called Los Masoquistas. In this chirigota, they viciously critique those part of the proletarian class who defend the interests of the bourgeoisie as masochists, dressed as construction workers in BDSM articles. You know what? Let me just show you.
Conciencia de clase, díselo, perro flauta que yo no tengo. No es verdad, solo que la clase que defiendo no es la mía. Dame un poco más. No es por ignorancia ni miedo, enteraos ya que me encanta sufrir y pasarlo mal. Por ejemplo, odio al pueblo catalán, pero nunca los voy a dejar marchar. Quiero derechitas que no sean cobardes, con mano dura, menos con el fraude, y cobrar en vez de cobrar, currar por la experiencia de ayunar. Y que al rey se le permita todo, y si hay derecho de pernada me ofrezco yo que salario mínimo me bajéis o congeléis y me lo descongeléis cuando lo haga Walt Disney. No quiero nada libre, solo el despido libre, pero soy liberal y soy muy liberal. Pero no en el sexo, a mí no me va eso, soy muy tradicional, misionero nada más. Soy liberal, neoliberal, neoliberal como tal. colegio ni sindicato, no existen ya trabajadores de verdad. Yo me refiero al que había antes con alegría, sin un desplante, que estaba en Auschwitz, ese sí que era ejemplar. ¡Maroto! ¡Qué frío más bueno pasó en la moto! ¡Guapa! Yo barro el polvo que tengo asma. Cari. Hola de que vete a tu país, dame miel para usted y ese adoquín, porque lo que no puedo consentir es que tú sufras antes que los de aquí. Ay, 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 el Mena. Yo no es que sea racista ni sea fascista, pero salta a la vista que tu papá terrorista. No, 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 no quiero que juegues en mi parque. Dice Abascal que hay que deportarte, a menos que marque Diego le con el Madrid. Ay, ay, ay.
Knowing that this form of proletarian art is popular amongst the masses, especially because of their humorous criticisms of the ruling class, how can we as Marxists use it to advance our line? In the talks at the Yan'an Forum on Literature and Art, Chairman Mao said, "Our purpose is to ensure that literature and art fit well into the whole revolutionary machine as a component part, that they operate as powerful weapons for uniting and educating the people and for attacking and destroying the enemy, and that they help the people fight the enemy with one heart and one mind." Our literary and art workers must accomplish this task and shift their stand. They must gradually move their feet over to the side of the workers, peasants, and soldiers, to the side of the proletariat, through the process of going into their very midst and into the thick of practical struggles, and through the process of studying Marxism and society. Only this way can we have a literature and art that are truly for the workers, a truly proletarian literature and art. So I think we as Marxists should use the lyrical satirical art of a chirigota to do more than just make proletarians laugh. They need to be, as Mao said, powerful weapons for educating and uniting the people. However, I do acknowledge that this is a comedic subgenre of a very localized folk music, meaning that when I say we as Marxists, I really mean Marxists from the region of Cádiz. In other words, I'm putting together a team for when I move back to Spain. DM me if interested. Some people might wonder if the humor and satire so endemic to the chirigota would be a barrier to effectively using it as a tool to attack and destroy our class enemies. And some others would say that talking of Marxism and our liberation as a class would make a chirigota not funny. I'm here to remind you that, historically, many Marxists have been hilarious. Take Vladimir Lenin, for example. He was a Kendrick-level hater, a cat lover, and would not write a piece of literature without adding at least one joke or insult. All the social chauvinists are Marxists now. Don't laugh. And Ka Joma? A man with the same humor as every Filipino lolo if Filipino grandpas were woke? Ka Karaoke Joma?
I've traveled each and every highway, but much more than this, I did it Mao's way.
Okay, I'm having too much fun. Let me step back for a second. Of course, a revolution is not a dinner party. If Marx, Lenin, Joma, and Mao, and everyone else were just joking around all the time, then yeah, they wouldn't have achieved anything. But they were human beings, and more importantly, communists. They lived amongst the proletariat, they built relationships and gained trust with proletarians. Enough trust to launch actual Marxist revolutions that overthrew powerful bourgeois states. Building trust in those relationships means integrating with the culture of the proletariat, and one way to do so is through humor and entertainment. Additionally, engaging in the mocking of the bourgeoisie and class enemies to the proletariat you seek to organize also helps and undermine the illusions of their power and competence, and helps challenge the fascination that the masses have with the bourgeois broadly. The artist part of the National Democratic Movement of the Philippines in general, and in particular the CPP, create songs and plays with and for the masses to aid in the elevation of their political consciousness from an intermediate to advanced level. And many of these songs and plays, which cover very specific Marxist topics and localized issues, are extremely funny. And they get the job done. Humor, when used correctly to educate the masses, is clearly effective in the Philippines, which boasts the longest-lived ongoing Marxist revolution in the world because they know how to integrate with and propagate to the masses in a variety of ways. Thus, people around the world who seek to be as successful as they are in their revolution should learn from their organizing skills and apply those lessons to their own material conditions. Like, come on, imagine a Chirigota going around every corner during Carnaval, introducing themselves as a Marxist Chirigota and what party or revolutionary organization they are associated with, and then performing stomach-achingly, tear-jerkingly hilarious songs, satirizing the bourgeois class of Spain, and proposing actual solutions to the issues faced by the local proletariat. Not only do the satirical songs, which are supposed to be catchy and memorable by format, stay in their minds because of the hilarity of the lyrics, but because they learn something from it. And after the chirigota is done, or between every paso doble or couplé, they are reminding people crowded around them laughing in agreement with their criticisms in the format of jokes that, if they agree enough to find the song funny, they should join their party or organization. Or to be honest, more likely, if they're satirizing their enemies, they can beg the audience to, Please do not join this evil Marxist organization. They're trying to make us pay for exploiting our workers. Critical art is enjoyable. Satirical art produced by and for the masses for the purpose of providing an avenue to rant against and make fun of the ruling class? Even better. We love accurate criticisms of the bourgeoisie and revolutionary optimism being expressed in artistic ways, instead of inaccurate and nihilistic petty bourgeois art that likes to cosplay as revolutionary for profit. But we also need art that is promoting actual solutions, Marxist solutions, to the suffering of the proletarian class. Not all revolutionary art needs to do this, but we can't only have enjoyable rants and jokes. A revolution is not a dinner party. When we study the role of art and literature during the Chinese Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution, the National Democratic Movement, we see that it is really an essential weapon to wield against the bourgeois class and educate and unite the proletariat. So, Marxists with a talent in the musical department, whether a member of a chirigota of the region of Cádiz, a rapper from Baltimore City, a punk artist in Buenos Aires, we need to hold ourselves and our comrades to a higher standard, a standard that comrades like Mao and Joma held revolutionary artists to. In other words, ensure your art, like you, is serving the people.
Ya no quedan camareros, hacen falta camareros, hay un poco camareros. Ya no quieren currar los chavales, no hay cultura hoy aquí del esfuerzo. Ven mi éxito pero no saben el trabajo que me costó abrir la cartera de mi padre para conseguir el dinero para abrir. ¡Viva! Un amigo, un camarero mío. Y era tan amigo mío y tanta la amistad la nuestra, que no supe qué pensar, pero le dije en mudo lío, un amigo de verdad no cobra la hora extra. Amigo no te dice a que voy al sindicato. Un amigo no denuncia y frega gratis todos los platos. Si te va acosando a camarera no declara de testigo. La amistad es regalar el corazón de un camarero a su hostelero. A su hostelero. Me dijo este amigo mío, mi padre ha fallecido, déjame que libre un día. Y dije, ¿sabes qué quiero? Pero que pierdo dinero, ten un poco de empatía. Hace aquí mucha falta, porque es temporada alta, y luego está Navidades. Y tu padre hablando en serio, no se irá del cementerio. Que después de carnavales ten un detalle conmigo, que yo te quiero mi amigo más que tú tu pared.